We're going to have Vanelli up here in just a second. Team, if you want to ping him and remind him to come on back. So he'll be joining us in a little bit. And for some of those panelists that Alex mentioned, we're going to be hearing from Eddie Knoll, Kevin LaRue, Thomas Hessler. Looks like Malcolm House is already here. So we've got some great folks who are going to be sharing techniques and what they do. So we're really excited by that. I also saw a few technical questions, so I want to address some of those as well as screen share to answer some of those. So that part is there. So a couple of you are asking about M1 version. When do we expect it? That's support for the M1 Mac. The team is actively working on that. I don't have a time frame, but it's being built right now, so that's fine. Any chance you'll let the user name the different layers in local masking? So it's great. That's a great suggestion. Definitely also submit that to support at Skylum, and those sorts of suggestions are definitely considered. You'll see that we did add some other user interface refinements with this time around, so those sorts of features definitely get tackled. You asked if Alex is a creative who uses the software. Everyone at Skylum uses the software. Alex has a background in creativity and has worked in marketing and photography for much of his professional life. But like a lot of us as well, he also has a great background in technical and science. So it's pretty cool. All right, let me show a couple more examples. We're going to get back to some editing, and then we'll have another guest coming in, and he's going to share some stuff. But I want to show you something we can do for outdoor portraits. When we're shooting in available light, how we can really maximize those and how we can save time with batching. So let me share my screen here, 1 second, and I'll bring that live. There we go. And just making sure that you're not seeing any zoom interfaces or things like that. You should just be seeing Luminar. And I've got a series of photos here that were shot by photographers Dan and Shell. They did a portrait outdoor shooting. And if you've watched our YouTube channel, you've seen some of the behind the scenes of the making of these pictures, as well as how they edited them. And I want to show you just a quick advice here on how we could pull it together. Remember, our templates ability is going to scan the photo and make suggestions. So it looks at the content and finds different categories that you can choose from. So here's experimental, for example. I like the light flares, the overlays, and the nice, bright, warm colors. But I'd like the flares to be a little less intense. So if I click Edit, I could see how this was made. And I know that this was made using a texture overlay. So I could just lighten that up a little bit and lower the opacity so it's more subtle of an effect. And under the Edit here, I'm just going to bring in a little bit of structure because we've got that great texture of those old rusty trains. And we'll put a little simple vignette on things. Well, now that works great. And if we look here, you'll see that we've relied upon AI tools. We've used Enhance AI. We've used Structure AI. We've taken advantage of some of these tools. And also, even though it's not AI, Details Enhancer is quite useful. So we could bring out the texture there just a little bit. All right, so now what we could do is synchronize. So one of the coolest things is with that image selected, you could just select any other images that you want to modify. You can command click or control click, shift click on a range of them, copy and paste, you name it. But here I've selected a whole bunch of pictures from that shoot. And you can see how simple it is just to scan through the library and find the ones you want to work in your catalog. And then with a simple right click, you could choose to sync those adjustments across the board. What that's going to do is easily pull it all together and allow it to synchronize those adjustments across every single image. And it's going to go through, and you can see when it's done, there's a little edit module there. You'll see the little edit icon. That means that it finished processing that image, and you can see how it made those adjustments. So that gives you that power and flexibility to quickly go through and to get things done, which is very cool. Now, speaking of the catalog here, a couple things of note. I see a few questions here and there about DAM, which is an acronym for Digital Asset Manager. Luminar is not designed to be a DAM. We approach the catalog approach to make it simple to work with photos. So you could add in a folder or individual images very quickly. And when you do, it's preserved. So folders equate to actual folders on your disk. So if I go in and I say, oh, I want to see those folders, that's a real folder on my hard drive. So I could show that in the Finder or the Explorer and you see it's there. So that works. If I make changes at the Finder level, that's going to carry through. You see it renamed itself there. If I moved something into that folder when Luminar wasn't running, when I launched Luminar, it's going to show up. So we take this approach of working directly with your hard drive. We find it easier rather than having a virtual catalog where things can be spread out all over the place. So if you actually move things around and you take them from this or that, it's going to actually move the image. If you rename things at the Finder or the desktop or the Explorer, it's going to rename them in Luminar or vice versa. So this gives you that ability to work with what's there. There was also a question about albums. So albums let you virtually organize images. So if you're going through and you find pictures that you want, you could start collecting them into an album. Maybe you found an image that you really wanted to keep or share. You can use albums much like a playlist. And I could rename this one here, and I'll just call this Portfolio. This way, you're not actually moving them on your desktop or your computer or your Windows Explorer, but you're virtually organizing them. So folders are real world, albums are virtual, and you have both inside of Luminar. You'll also see that it tracks everything you did. So you could see, what did you edit today? You can go in and browse what you worked on and see it. You can go in and see pictures. When did you add them? And when were they captured? And so you could very easily go and find things very quickly. And if you use the search, you can search for information. But again, we're not trying to be a full-size digital asset manager. Rather, we're trying to give you streamlined tools so you can focus on finding the images that you want to use for editing. Okay. I've been talking for about 2.5 hours, which means that it's a good time for me to let somebody else talk before I trip over my words for a while. And I'm going to give my mouth a rest, but we're bringing on a good friend of mine and an excellent person, Robert Vanelli. I'm going to stop screen sharing here. And Vanelli is one of our main educators, and his job is to help photographers learn more about this. He's a sports photographer as well as a portrait photographer, and I've known him for many years. And V, you've got a great bunch of guests starting up, but you're going to start off by showing us some cool things this morning, and then we'll hand it off. So welcome, and anything you want to say before I kick the screen off to you?
Well, no, Rich, I mean, I'm enjoying watching you, especially the interview with Alex. That was really very informative. So I have you on TV. Now it's muted, and it's so funny. If you can see what I have set up here, it's like we're in this huge newsroom. Because again, just like you, we get excited about this stuff. We're really pumped and motivated. So, a 14-hour day for us is like, let's have fun. So yep. I can't wait to check this out.
Good. Well, I'm going to hand it off to you. I'm just going to answer one more question before I do. And Sean was wondering, hey, if I move things in folders, does that screw up albums? Nope. Albums will keep track of it. And if for some reason Luminar can't find it because it doesn't know where you moved it, usually it'll find it. I'm surprised. Like sometimes I try to demonstrate like, oh, I didn't have Luminar running and I moved this to another hard drive. Luminar still finds it because it's able to look for date and file size and name, and it scans your drives looking for things. It tries to fix it. But if for some reason you manage to break it, there is a relink command so that you can find offline media and reconnect it. That's not as much fun as what we're covering here today, but I'm going to hand off to Vanelli, and then Vanelli, your next guest, Eddie, is here for your 10 o'clock slot, so he'll be ready for that as well. But why don't you kick it off and start screen sharing? And I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to do what Vanelli did. I'm going to just watch the webinar for a moment and have some morning breakfast, and then I'll be back in a couple of hours to help you guys.
Sounds great. Thanks, Rich. So right now you should be able to see my screen. Hello, Eddie. How you doing?
Hello, Vanelli. How are you?
Great. You know what I'll do is I'm going to show a couple things, and I'll have you on.
Yes, of course, yes. Right. So I will share my screen.
Nope, not yet,
I'm going to share my
You're
screen
up at 10,
first.
Eddie.
Let me show a couple things first.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and
turn
then
your
I'll
mic down
bring
just
you
a
on.
little bit, Eddie. You're a little loud.
Okay.
Ready? All right, so here I have on my screen now a couple things. What's really cool about Luminar AI is you could use it 3 different ways. So here at Skylum, we don't want to reinvent your workflow. We want to add to it. So you could use it as a standalone program, so you don't need any other program except Luminar AI to edit your images, or you could use it as an add-on or a plugin for Lightroom and for Photoshop. So imagine the things that Lightroom can't do, but would take years to master in Photoshop. You can use Luminar AI in between to make your life so much easier. So again, we're not here to reinvent the way you're doing your workflow. We're here to add to it and to make your life easier. And the third way is to use it as a single image editor. So imagine if you come to my house with a thumb drive of images. Hey, Vanelli, help me edit these. You pop it in the machine and boom, we're good to go. So let me show you a couple of my real quick favorite features about Luminar AI. It's the first completely AI interface program. What that means is right from the get-go, templates are going to be your introduction to AI. And all that means is I can either start from scratch or select from a template and let it give me suggestions on how it would edit this image. So if you feel like you're in a creative slump, use some of the templates. Look at this. And just do one click and get incredible results. Ooh, I love this one. All right, now let's go. Okay, let's go with this one. Now, for those people who feel, well, one click, okay, I didn't do a whole lot. I want to do more. Just click on the edit button. And now from here are your entire tools set off to the side. And you can add to what you just did or keep it the way it is. Now, to me, this is a one-click, boom, it's great. But once again, if you feel guilty and you feel like you got to add something to it, let's say a vignette. You can come over to the Vignette tool, choose a subject, and this is what I absolutely love. And I'm going to go to an extreme so you can see what I mean. I'm going to click where I want that vignette to be. And again, I'm going to go to an extreme so you can see this. Look at this. I can click anywhere around and place the center of that vignette where I want it to be. I'll dial it back a bit and just give it that little extra. And if I want, I can even add inner light to the scene. Now, it doesn't look like we did a lot, but watch this. Before and after, ready? Right about there. Before, after, dial it back just a little more, right there. Look at that. So if you felt guilty that one click was too quick, now you can go back in and make some additional changes. I mentioned how we could use it as a plugin. And again, if I had Lightroom or Photoshop booted up, which we'll show later on, I can go through the whole full process of it. But what I did also mention was how to use it as a single image editor. Now, this right here is my catalog. And if you notice, I have a lot of images in my catalog. If you're the type of person who doesn't need to use Luminar to organize your images or to view your images, then you could use it as a single image editor. And if I click on this little plus icon, I can either add a folder of images or I can add a single image. Well, if I select a single image, now from here, I can browse my hard drive, and I typically leave everything under photography, and I'm just gonna grab a single image. Now, once I bring this in, if I look into the catalog, it doesn't appear here. It appears way up here under single images, the ones that I brought it in on. So at this point, I can start, once again, with the templates. I can come over here to a template, and it's going to recognize that this is a portrait. I can convert it to black and white. Oh, I like that. A little too much. Or I can continue, maybe do an experimentation and see how that looks. Ooh, that looks interesting. Now, okay, so let's say we settle on this. I like this, but if it's a little too much, I can come down here to this master slider, watch this. If I bring it all the way to the left, the effect is completely zeroed out. If I bring it to the right, I can slowly introduce the effect until I feel it's just enough. So here's 100%. I'm going to dial it back and do the old traditional 70% rule. Between 50 to 70%. If I feel it's too great, I'll dial it back in between that, and now it doesn't look over processed. So here we are before and after. And again, that's a single image edit to where I can just look at it and just bringing in a single image and start enhancing it. Now, if I come over here to my edit manual or edit tab again, one of my absolute favorite tools is Enhance AI. This one slider, in fact, let me reset this. Adjustments, revert to original. Now this brings out a good point. Luminar is a non-destructive program, meaning at any point, you can go back to the original where you first started from, and your image is safe and sound. So if I click on the history tool here, it actually shows me everything I did to this image, and I can march it back to the very beginning or any of the steps along the way. So here's the original. And now let's look at this Enhance AI. So here's Accent AI. That one slider is going to automatically improve color, detail, tone, and depth of the image. So all the stuff I normally would do under, let's say, the light tool, which you're used to this. If you're used to Lightroom, look at this. You're used to this here, the older way of editing. Here, I'm able to use one tool to help me bring out some of the colors and details in the image. Now, I still can come back to the light tool. So think of this as dealing with my raw photo. I want to set the white balance. And when I usually do this, I grab the eyedropper tool, and I like to click on the white of the eye. Now from here, usually enrich the blacks, just a little bit. And before and after. Now, I'm going to come down here and show you one more tool before we turn it over. This Moo Tool and the dramatic tools under the creative tools, it's absolutely amazing. For the Moo Tool, I could choose one of the built-in custom LUTs, which is a lookup table, and let it automatically change the whole tone or creativity of the image for me. So I could just browse through here, find one that I like this one, and then accept it.
And Vanelli, can you show how to save your own template when you're done here? That question's come up a few times, so just make sure you show them where to save it and where to access it when you're all done.
You got, that was right on my list. So here I have it set. Now I have everything looking really good. One thing I do want to do is add just a touch of detail to this. I like to start with the medium detail first, and then just a nudge of the small details. And I can look in here, and I like where it's at. And last but not least, since this is a portrait, we have amazing portrait tools. From here, just the face alone, watch this. It knows right where the face is, and look at that. It's able to relight the face. So if I forgot a reflector, and I'm on a shoot, and there's not enough light on the face, this right here replaces that reflector I would need and bounce that light back onto the subject. I can slim the face. Here I like where she's at. And Leanne has beautiful eyes, but let's enhance them just a little bit. And one of the newest features, the iris flare. Look underneath her eye. Look at that. You see how it's adding just a little flare or catch light under her eyes. Here, if she had dark circles under her eyes, we can remove them. And improve eyebrows. And under the mouth, darken. Good. So now keep in mind, I'm doing this all manually. This is where, like I said, the templates would help us because I could choose one of these templates to actually do that for me. But in this case, what I want to do is one last thing is fix her skin nice and smooth, not overboard. Good. So, and the eyes are just a little too much. I went overboard. So let me bring back down just a touch. There. Now, I don't want to have to keep doing this over and over and over again. So what I can do is come down here and create my own template. So I'm going to save this. Now when I come over to templates, we have them nice and organized here. Favorites, my templates, ones you've purchased, and older templates you've used with Luminar 4. So I'm going to click on my templates, and there's the one we just created. Let me rename it. Let's call this soft skin. Now that I have that set, I'm going to reset this right here. Adjustments, revert to the original. So here's the original image that we started with. Now if I come back over and I click on the template that we just created, boom, it gives me that beautiful look that took us 3 or 4 minutes to create. Now we're able to do that in seconds. And let me show you.
Yep, so Vanelli,
yes,
before you go forward, and I know and our next guest is just about queued up, there was a question about the non-destructive nature of that. Can you explain what's happening here? You didn't permanently change the original photo. You've developed the photo, but if you want to keep those changes, what would you do with it and what's happening under the hood?
Gotcha. So here's a picture of my nephew, for example. So obviously you could tell, we had a little texture to it, a little framing, my signature. Now at this point, the image itself has not changed. So if I come over here to the history tool, give it a second to load up. And by the way, when you see this illuminating Skylum blue, that means it's thinking and processing. So now I'm ready. So this is what I did to this image. Notice down here is the original. So that's the original. This is what I started with. And then this is what I finished with. Now, these changes are being seen inside Luminar, all right? So, excuse me. So right now, all the changes are being seen just inside Luminar. Now, what I need to do, if I want this to be transferred, let me get up here, right there. If I want this to be seen, let's say on social media, on Facebook, or if I want to make a copy of this, now what I need to do is come over here to export, and I can save it to a disk, email it, or put it up on one of my SmugMug accounts or 500px. So once you create your work of art inside Luminar, you have to export it with all the changes on it, and you can send that off to where you want it to be, whether it's for print or for social media. So if I save it here to disk, I have the option of changing the size of it based on what I need.